Welcome everyone to this evening's ASCC meeting. My name is Adrienne Smith. I'm a senior planner with the town. Welcome to our new and returning commissioners, and of course to members of the public on Zoom and I was gonna say in the schoolhouse, nobody yet. Fingers crossed we'll have a visitor. Firstly, congratulations to Rebecca Flynn, who has been reappointed by council to the ASCC for a 4-year term. And welcome to Carter War, who has also been appointed for a 4-year term. A welcome also to Gina Dixon, who is serving the remainder of a departed commissioner's term, so she'll be serving through the end of this year. Gina cannot attend the meeting in person this evening, but she will be on Zoom as a member of the public. She's going to be supporting the applicant team for 80 Golden Oak, the project we'll be discussing tonight. She's the architect for that project. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and swear in Carter War to start, so he can begin officially serving as commissioner. We will
Adrienne,
be doing.
do we have a quick moment where I can make your introduction to the ASCC members and to the public?
Oh, sure thing. Sorry, John, go ahead.
Sure. You're welcome. Good evening, everyone. I'm John Biggs. I'm the interim planning and building director for the town of Portola Valley. I'm filling in here for a little bit until a new planning and building director is hired. And I just wanted to share with the members of the ASCC, the past members, current members, and the new members that have joined, that Adrienne is going to be our ASCC representative, our staff liaison to this board and commission. She's been very familiar and working a lot with ASCC on a variety of projects, and we have full faith and confidence in her and her ability to lead the commission through the various projects that you take on through your tenure on the ASCC. So congratulations, Adrienne. We appreciate all the great work that you're doing, and we have all the faith and confidence that you continue to marshal and assist the ASCC as they look at all these various projects that come before them. So with that, I'll let you go ahead and do the swearing in.
Great.
Thank you.
Do you want to turn on your mic?
It's on?
Now you're on.
About the commission. First of all, since we haven't met in eons, I feel like we never got to say bon voyage to Al, to Jane, so I just want them to know. I mean, we always used to have gifts for them and take them, we'd go out and have a drink. So I sort of feel like that kind of fizzled. And on the other hand, I'm so thrilled about Gina and Carter, and of course you're back. But anyway, I'm excited for this year, and hopefully we're going to get a lot of projects coming in. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dana. I agree with what you're saying, the timing, the departures and then the holidays and everything kind of.
They just went poof.
It did kind of fizzle. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I didn't even know that Al was stepping down. I didn't know that Jane was not re-upping.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, they were wonderful members of the commission.
Yeah.
We're going to miss them for sure. Okay, so thank you, John, for that. I appreciate the introduction. I was just going to say also that we do need to do Gina's swearing in. Again, she's traveling right now, so we'll handle that when we'll do that offline actually when she's back. So then she'll be able to hit the ground running at the next ASCC meeting. Okay, so swearing in, I'm going to read the oath of office, and all you have to do when I'm done is just say I do. Pretty simple. Okay, so if you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that you will take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which you are about to enter? Wonderful. Thank you and congratulations.
And the Constitution of Portola Valley, I
That too.
might add. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we'd like to move to the election of chair and vice chair. So of course, we'll need a nomination and a second, and then we'll need a vote for that. Same for both chair and vice chair. So I'm going to turn it over to our commission here to handle that.
Well, I'm happy with, Carter, were you interested in chairing?
I would chair, if you'd like me.
I would nominate Carter because she's got 20-year history.
We have a nomination. Is there a second? It's Rebecca. Okay.
You ready? You ready to?
I just think there, you'll, if you have to recuse yourself for certain things, someone else is going to
Yeah.
chair a lot of times.
Made a good vote.
Pardon?
Oh, do you want to turn your mic on, Kenny?
I'm pretty sure I'm the least experienced on this.
Plus, I can never hear you. So can't hear you to save my life.
And I have a 2-year-old employee.
It's up to you.
Why is it up to me?
If you would rather be vice chair.
I'm happy to vice chair. You know, I'm off at the end of the year and then I'll be done. But, you know, I'm happy to vice chair until then, until you guys get your feet a little more wet or, you know, unless you feel like you're ready.
I'm fine too. I can do it as well, especially if
Well,
you're not planning to
Let,
re-up.
no, I'm not
Then it
going to
would make
re-up.
more sense for me to take it.
All right, well, why don't I,
I'd nominate Rebecca for the vote.
yeah, second.
that.
Nice. Heather, and second by Deanna. Okay, so let's have a vote for, let's return back to our chair. Nomination by Dana, this is for Carter War, nomination by Dana and a second from Rebecca. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, it carries. And nomination for vice chair for Rebecca Flynn, nomination made by Carter, second by Dana. All those in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. Congratulations, chair and vice chair.
Yay. I'm glad we got that done tonight. I was worried about going forward and,
Yeah, the
You guys have to
leadership is
change
important.
chairs now.
oh,
Chair can be wherever, wherever. you want.
I did like gaveling though.
Well, we'll give it to you.
All right, so we have new business tonight. Do you want to, you're going to intro it, Carter, but then also,
First item of business.
Could we have an oral communication?
oh, pardon me, pardon
Yes.
me. Yes, thank you so much. You're doing well as vice
the-
chair already.
The next item is oral communications, the time when members of the public, can discuss items of interest, to the ASCC for items not on tonight's agenda. Anything that's on tonight's agenda, would need to, come during that item. Is there anyone either online, or here in the room that wants to discuss an item of oral communication?
Me.
Good.
So John, you had mentioned that when I spoke to you that, oh, is he still on?
Don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, he had mentioned to me that, that the applications for the new planning director had finished last week and that we had gotten a number of applicants for the job. And I wondered what the process was for deciding who the new director will be, whether there'll be interviews, whether the ASCC or the Planning Commission members at all will be involved in that process, whether we'll be involved in vetting some of the top candidates, or what the process is for that.
Well, that process is going to rest with our town manager, and I don't believe that he has finalized the process yet. It'll be somewhat based upon the number of applicants that we've received and their qualifications. So at this stage, I would say stay tuned a little bit to see if there's any additional outreach or efforts to include various members of the community in the selection process.
If I could, John, I really think that it based on experience in the history, with hiring without ASCC and Planning Commission, having any exchange with the potential candidates, that the town council would be remiss, in not including, some subcommittee, of the ASCC and the Planning Commission, in the interviewing process, because of the close relationship, that the building and planning director, should have, with the ACC and the Planning Commission. So please, share that with Sharif, and with the town council.
I also
Mhm.
wrote to Sharif and the town council about making sure that there were representatives from the ASCC and Planning Commission on the hiring committee. Because we used to do that with Tom Blassick. So, and given that the town manager is new, it's very important that we have a presence in this. So yes, I'm right there with you guys.
Okay,
Thank
And
you
then
for
the-
bringing that up.
Yeah, and the second thing I wanted to talk about was related to that. Obviously, we will eventually have a new planning director. And so I'm wondering a bit what the process is for us as a commission to sort of start working with this new person in terms of understanding what changes they may make with the process for applicants coming to the ASCC, what process we might be able to have as a group to work with, for example, to have a session, a study session, perhaps with local architects like you had suggested, and recent applicants that have gone through the ASCC process in the past 5 years or so, so that we aren't so affected by things that happened during COVID. But just to get a better understanding of how we might be able to improve the process for applicants coming before the ASCC if it's needed, and if it's needed, if there is that sort of feedback from people. So is there a process for us as a commission to meet with the public, with, local architects to kind of work out, what regulations are needed, if any, what processes are needed to change, if any?
Yeah, I would suggest that you agendize that for a discussion at a future ASCC meeting, and one at which once the new director is identified, invite them to that meeting. Remember, we have to make sure that all these discussion topics are things that need to be agendized, and the public needs to be given an opportunity to know what you're going to be talking about and participate in the process. So, as for this evening, I think waiting till the new director's on board, and then, as I mentioned, agendizing this as a topic for discussion at a future meeting of the ASCC would be the appropriate next steps here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I have an oral communication in that I was contacted by someone today about the item on the agenda tonight who was not contacted. They were a neighbor. Is that not happening anymore? Neighbors being contacted about projects in the works?
They definitely are. Jamie, can you speak to?
Yes, I can speak to that. So the meeting is publicly noticed by the town at least 10 days before the meeting occurs. And so all of the addresses are then put into the town file that were in that 300 foot radius. I personally don't do that noticing, so I would have to reach out to the staff member who normally does that and to confirm. However, that is part of the process, and
Okay.
if they were not, I wouldn't be here at this meeting presenting. So if that information, if that could be forwarded to me as the project planner, whoever is the project planner, that's really important information, because I could then reach out to them, and then I can reach out to staff to find out. I'm just being made aware of this. And so definitely I don't know that person's address and that information.
I just wanted to make sure that nothing had changed in terms of notifying. And also in ADUs, neighbors are not being notified. Is that correct?
ADUs the code does specify that that neighbors are to be notified within that 300 foot radius for a state exemption ADU. How neighbors have been notified for this, even though the state exemption ADU is not under the purview under the ASCC. So that would be by default, because I did include that as that state exemption ADU is proposed. But otherwise, if it is just put in through a building permit, still the 300 foot radius is it is listed right now in the municipal code that is also
I was
noticed.
not notified about any of my neighbors' ADUs. So anyway, I'll just check on that this week down at Town Hall. But anyway, I just wanted to get that on the record.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And just a reminder for the commission, this is the communication period for members of the public to address the commission. You do have a opportunity later in the agenda under commission reports to ask clarifying questions and so forth.
Okay, I do see
Just-
two
just an FYI.
hands. Thank you, John. I see two hands over Zoom. The first one, I see a phone number ending in 7562.
Good evening. Thank you, members of the AACC. Thank you for stepping up, especially Dana Breen and Carter. You know this town, you know our values, you know our general plan. And so I would like to thank you for, sorry about that, I have a new puppy. For stepping up and teaching everybody what the code is. We have seen a big disconnect between what the process that we were used to and what we have seen in the last 4 years. A lot of ADUs and other development projects were approved by ministerial and discretionary, discretionary power. And yes, and they were not adhering by our general plan. So Portola Valley has a lot of issues, and I hope we can address them as a community. I am a little scared because the reports that I see published in the newspaper that they want to go forward now that the housing element has been approved. They want to immediately go with the programs, but please remember that the residents have suffered for all these years, more than 5 years. We have so many issues that have not been addressed. And I hope collaboratively we can work together. As a member of the Bike and Pedestrian Traffic Safety Committee, we found out before Laura left is that we have an input in parking and driveways. And we were never consulted before. So there is a process in place. It has been neglected, and hopefully we can restore it. And I hope I can count on you. We will all help you and support you in the decision making. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Next, we have Christy C.
Yes,
Christie,
thank
you're
you.
here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You know what? We're all in this together, and I'm not opposed to the project, but I was 305 feet away and we were not notified. So obviously, if I'm on the corner of Golden Oak and Alpine, this will affect me because that's where the trucks go up the road. So I am noticing that other cities maintain 500 feet of noticing neighbors. And neighbors do better without surprises.
Christie?
So I encourage the Planning Commission and the ASCC to notice neighbors of 25 feet away. And I'm encouraging this body to put it on their agenda in the future to discuss 300 feet versus 500 feet. And I'll say the rest of my comments later. Thank you.
Thank you, Christie. Anyone else with their hand up? Adrian?
That's it for now.
Okay, great. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the project as described in the staff report at 80 Golden Oak. While this is my first meeting back, I'm embarrassed to say that I have to recuse myself because my client next door at 60 is pursuing a project, and because of that, I'll be recusing myself from this item. And since I wasn't available, for the minutes, from the last meeting, I will issue my abstention with the majority.
See ya.
Would you like to return afterward?
I'll wait out.
Oh, you're gonna, all right.
What, just
Are you leaving for the night? No, okay.
reports?
All right.
Oh.
Please let me know when it's okay to begin.
Gotcha.
Virginia, we're almost ready.
Okay, no rush. Thank you.
All right, so we got a brief intro from Carter. We do have Jamie Bourne as the project planner for 80 Golden Oak. So I'm gonna hand it to Jamie and she can get started with the presentation. Go ahead, Jamie.
Okay, thank you and good evening, everyone. ASCC members and members of the public. The item before you this evening is for an architectural review and site development permit for a new entryway, hardscape improvements, landscape improvements, fencing, and significant tree removal at 80 Golden Oak. An 800 square foot state exemption ADU is also proposed. That is not under the purview of the ASCC. 80 Golden Oak is a 1.5 acre lot zoned RE1A. The lot sits between Bear Gulch Drive and Sausville Drive on Golden Oak. The slope of the lot is 18.8%, and the main residence is located near the center of the site with an attached garage and access via a driveway at the southwest corner of the lot opposite Sausville.
I'm sorry, Chair, can I interrupt for a second? In that, isn't Gina Dixon, her firm represents, and has she recused herself?
Yes, she's not serving tonight. She's just,
Okay,
she's on as a
but I
member of the
saw her
public.
there.
As she's representing.
So
the-
she, okay, gotcha. Because she's representing.
Right.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry. Wanted to make sure we had that covered.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Okay, thank you. The existing site, this parcel is subject to 20-foot rear and side yard setbacks and 50-foot front yard setbacks. The site contains an existing main residence with attached garage, as I already mentioned before. The site also includes existing retaining rock walls, stone stack walls, and walkways that span the front of the main residence and meander around to the existing backyard patio area. Just let me back up there. To the proposed site plan, the applicant is proposing to construct a revised driveway area, a front entryway area, a front pathway leading to the proposed ADU, and also then leads to a garden area. The garden area will attach to a gravel pathway that leads to the expanded rear patio area. The patio area contains a trellis, an outdoor kitchen, seating area, and outdoor fireplace. There are also 2 water features proposed, one just beyond the front entryway area and one in the rear yard. Here we have the existing and proposed front entryway area. The existing entryway faces Golden Oak and it contains a small gabled awning with several steps and a landing. The new entryway proposes a single sloped awning with architectural brackets and stone benches. 2 lighting fixtures are proposed to be removed and 1 fixture is proposed above the doorway. The front doorway is existing and will remain. The new covered area will be comprised of clay tile shingles to match the existing roof. The rear patio and proposed mailbox can be seen on this slide. These are elevation views for the proposed rear patio area. And it depicts the outdoor trellis, the outdoor kitchen, and the outdoor fireplace, and a seating area. The height for the proposed trellis is approximately 9 feet. The proposed mailbox is also depicted, as I mentioned on this slide, and the total height for the proposed mailbox is 5 feet and 1 inch. Oh, just one moment. This here is the colors and materials board. The proposed materials for the mailbox are a stone trim similar to the dry stack stone and uncapped stone veneer retaining walls as shown at the upper left portion of this slide. The front and rear water feature, they are both depicted here and listed under number 12. The paving for the rival court paving is proposed to be a neutral gray and tan slate, and the entryway is proposed to be travertine. The proposed trellis in the rear yard is Alaskan yellow cedar with beams of the same material and columns, beams that are that will be covered, some of them in a staggered glass, with staggered glass panels. The outdoor kitchen area is proposed to be a stucco finish to match the color of the main residence and contain a stone counter. All the colors and materials would be consistent with the town's design guidelines and the light reflectivity values. The project proposes 525 cubic yards of soil movement associated with site development permitting review. The cut and fill for the site work is primarily associated with movement of retaining walls in the front and rear yard and expansion of the rear patio and for the terraced garden area. Impervious surfaces are depicted on existing and proposed on this slide. Existing impervious surface area is 9,749 square feet. And the maximum allowable impervious surface area for the site is 8,423 square feet. The project proposes a total of 8,156 square feet of impervious surface, which brings the site into compliance for impervious surface area. The proposed fencing associated with the site includes replacement of an existing 6-foot fence to the backyard that is attached to the garage and replacement of a 3-foot 6-inch trash enclosure area. The design for both of those are depicted at the bottom here. I didn't show the 6-foot fence. I only showed the trash enclosure fence, but they are proposed to be the same. Next, just a moment, I kind of lost. We have the steel and wood guardrails are proposed where required at retaining walls at the 3-foot 6-inch height. Oh, actually, I don't believe that those are at a 3-foot. Oh yeah, they are. They're a 3-foot 6-inch height also. And a 6-foot welded wire mesh fence with yellow cedar posts surrounds the proposed orchard and terrace garden area. And this diagram shows the depictions of both. Here's the proposed landscape plan, which contains 2,193 square feet of new landscaping. The proposed vegetation is predominantly native plants and consists of trees, shrubs, and perennials. Screening is proposed along Golden Oak, where existing ground-mounted solar panels are located. Landscaping is proposed at the side yard near the ADU as well, just to provide some screening to the neighboring property. And an orchard of trees is proposed above the garden, the terraced garden area. Here is the proposed tree removal plan. Sorry, let me just back up and just to indicate that the proposal for landscaping complies with the town's water efficient landscape ordinance and is shown here up that it is compliant at the top of the slide. So now onto trees. This is the proposed tree removal plan, and the project proposes to remove a total of 17 trees. Of those, 6 are categorized as significant trees, and all consist of coast live oaks. The Conservation Committee did review this proposal and had no objections to the proposal. The project proposal includes 19 path lights, 14 wall lights, and 14 wall lights along pathways and stairways throughout the site. 2 downlights are proposed at the new trellis in the rear yard, and 2 entry lights are proposed to be removed at the front entryway. And as mentioned, 1 new fixture is proposed to replace that, the 2 fixtures that were previously there. Public noticing, as mentioned, was mailed to all property owners within a 300-foot radius on the site on February 2nd, 2024. The applicant also conducted their own public outreach to adjacent neighbors in June of 2022. No comments were received from adjacent neighbors or as a result of public noticing. Staff recommends that the ASCC review the proposal and approve the requested architectural review and site development permit for hardscape and landscape improvements, subject to the conditions of approval. both town staff and the applicant team are available for questions by the ASCC. And thank you very much.
I'm not sure the order. Is it questions for the,
Yeah, first thing is questions for the project planner and the applicant
from the
from the
commission?
commission.
Okay, so I'm opening the floor for questions for the commission, the planning consultants and the staff and the applicant.
I had a question regarding the lighting. The lighting levels in terms of the lumen ratings on the fixtures are above that of our design guidelines. And so the question is whether the lighting levels laid out in the design guidelines were considered for this, or that's just something that was overlooked.
Can you be specific? Because I could be incorrect. The lumens are indicated 125, 17, 80, 400, 400, and 374. So just
Yes.
help me understand, please.
My understanding is the design guidelines, the levels, 400 is over what's indicated for anything. I can pull up the design guidelines and you can look at the chart.
Would you like me to stop sharing and grab the design
I have-
guidelines, or just look
I have
into that and
comments
then
about
we
lighting when
can?
we get there. But you have questions about lighting.
What is the design guideline for the lighting?
We can pull that up. I mean, my understanding looking at it is that the 400 is over anything that we any of the categories on. I remember that it's page 16. I can try and pull it up myself.
I'm pulling that up right now. So so these are for overhead, for certain types of fixtures, walkway this is really, I'm talking about stair step and walkway fixtures, this is not specific to other fixtures, which is listed in the lighting ordinance and also within the zoning code. And so there are different luminaries, which I believe are 1,125 lumens is the maximum allowable. And with garages being a maximum of two fixtures that can be up to 1,125. So I will need to confirm that. If the ASCC still believes by looking at the design guidelines and the lighting ordinance that lighting seems excessive, that is something, of course, we want considered, and input on.
I guess we're talking now about the difference between town code limitations and the design guidelines, because
Correct.
if I read that chart, there's a row in that chart for overhead lighting where the typical installation is described as generally installed at entries to carports or residences. So I wouldn't interpret that as being, well, I would interpret that as being applicable to the fixtures that are listed in this design as at 400 lumen. So the general overhead, low height, and stair step, as listed in our design guidelines, I think applies across all types of lighting there. I think that was the intent.
What does the code actually say?
And so the code is, I'm looking at it right now with, garage doors may have one or two fixtures, which shall be limited to a total lumen count of 1,125 lumens. But that's lighting placement. So I have to
Jamie, this is Ann Hoffman. Am I allowed to try to answer the question?
If you would, if
I
you would
think-
like to,
Yeah, well, I think I'm just wondering if the piece that you're looking at, sir, has to do with what is listed as existing. If you look at that chart that we have, the red is existing, and that's what's listed as 400 lumen. It's not what we're proposing. Is that the chart that you're looking at?
that would be correct that those could be non-compliant existing lights. However, the ASCC could require that they be brought into compliance. However, what I will do is confirm the maximum amount of lumens, because to my knowledge, for ones that surrounded the structure, it was per fixture 1,125. And so I just need to confirm that in the information, and then I can follow up with ASCC so that we can make a determination. That's what
There are non-compliant existing fixtures, but I was hoping to make those comments when it's time to do comments. So I think where I'm mixed up here now is that we're in questions. So,
Correct.
and I
We're in questions.
thoroughly expect to get to lighting. Other questions?
I do have one question. It's related to the L1 landscape site plan. I'm just wondering where that came from. Is that a Portola Valley requirement? Is that a Woodside Fire Protection District requirement? Where did the requirement for that come from?
can you be specific about where
It's the landscape plan.
the
No,
landscape?
it's the site,
Landscape.
defensible, sorry, do I have the wrong number
Oh.
here? The defensible space plan.
That was not something that planning required. That would be
Oh, sorry,
potentially,
it's L, no. Yeah,
Uh,
L 3.0, the fuel management plan. Sorry, wrong number.
yeah, that was not required by planning. So that may have been a Woodside Fire Protection District requirement. And so I can reach out to them and ask if they required it. Also, the applicant may have additional information as to why that was included, because it wasn't.
It's not required. However, it is something that our landscape office usually includes because it is an important piece of information. And it does become part of the Woodside Fire Protection District likes to have that included.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions for the team? What's next? All right, well, from the public, do we have question? Is that what's next? I don't know the order. 'Cause I'm-
Public comment comes next.
Does it? I thought it was.
Oh, no, well, does the architect team have to, are they presenting?
Right.
Our architect team,
I believe they're just.
no?
They're
just
not
a-
required to present. They
No,
can,
I know.
Yeah.
I just, sometimes they do.
Does the architectural team wish to present?
I think Jamie has done a wonderful job in presenting this project as a whole. I think I would just like to add that the clients, as new homeowners, have really wanted to work with this landscape and work with this environment, creating it as much as a wildlife habitat as possible, keeping as many native plants and getting keeping the deer involved in access to the area as well. And I think we have worked well together to create spaces for the clients to be able to enjoy their new landscape, as well as keeping with the guidelines of what has been set by the town of Portola Valley. I think that's all I have to say at the moment, unless there's a specific questions.
Okay, all right, so if you're ready to move on to public comment?
Okay. So if there's public comment,
I see one hand up, it's Christy C.
Christy Corley, Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'll go ahead with what I said earlier. We're all in this together and we're not opposed to the project, yet I'm 305 feet away. I feel that my house should have been in the circular distance of 300. It's my understanding that even if a little bit of the circle goes into my property, I would be notified. It kind of makes a flat line there and I would have appreciated it. But other cities maintain 500 feet, noticing neighbors. Neighbors do better without surprises. I encourage the Planning Commission and the ASCC to notice neighbors 500 feet away, as we have lots of housing and building coming our way in the next 7 years.
Thank you,
So,
Christy. Do you have
no,
a comment specifically to the project?
Yes, I do. And so can the stormwater capture assessment be looked at after 1 year of implementation to ensure all is working as the proposed water crosses the street to my driveway at the bottom of Golden Oak? So sometimes in permits, we like to look at things after they're implemented 1 year out and make sure they're working properly. If it's not included as part of the permit, I have no recourse to say any comments. And then can you let us please know where the staging area is for 80 Golden Oak? At the top of Cervantes, the staging area has been a mess and I take walks all over this neighborhood. And I think, you know, just being nice to neighbors as to how the staging area looks is really important and where it is, and do the best you can with that. On page 8, number 4, I'm interested in the solar screening to be completed sooner rather than later. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
We have one other hand up, phone number ending in 7562.
Carolyn, could you please provide your comments for the project?
Great. Yes, thank you. So this is a general question actually to ASCC. Are you only looking at the water that is being used for irrigation, or also the water that is being used for the ADU?
The project looks at, ASCC is only evaluating the WELO requirements, which is the water for landscaping.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there other comments from the public?
No more hands.
Sorry, I don't know the order.
Okay, back to the commission.
Yep, that's it. Back to discussion.
Is it okay if I just provide one piece of input regarding lighting?
Yes.
The town does have also a lighting handout, which I refer to often. And the requirements being that a light source does not to exceed 1,125 lumens, which is where I got that piece of information from. And then it also does discuss the garage door requirement for, up to 2 pictures that doesn't exceed also that 1,125. And then the design guidelines being, the guidelines for the walkways and steps. And then it does mention also some type of overhead. So Kenny, I understand where there's maybe a bit of confusion. And so if there's further clarification that you would like, I will continue to work on that afterwards.
Thank you. I guess my understanding of I feel like I've seen the 1,125 or whatever that number was, and I'd interpreted that as a guideline for total lighting for a single entry or something like that, as opposed to a single fixture. I'm curious what that number is. Is that written into code? Where did that guideline come from?
Yes, the guideline is written into code. Prohibited lighting is lighting that exceed any permanent or temporary lighting in which any single light source exceeds 1,125 lumens. So that is written in the lighting ordinance, which is taken directly from the code. This is ordinance number 2018-424, which is the ordinance amending Title 18 zoning of the Portola Valley Municipal Code relative to outdoor lighting.
We used to be pretty intent on one light per door because that was building code. So, I mean, that when we have looked at houses traditionally, ASCC has said one light per door, one light at the driveway, at the garage, and one light at the entrance, at doors. But we'll just see what that looks like tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've done that on this.
Now's the
Budget.
time to start discussion. So who would like
Do
to
you want to start or do you want me to
start
start?
with lighting?
Pardon? No, everything.
Okay.
I will start my comments. Okay. I think I was there for the site visit. I think this is a really good project and I think it makes sense. And there are a lot of really great things. I think the trellis in the back is going to afford you lots of recreational, just a lot of fun. The oaks on the property are gorgeous. I think and the vegetable garden, I think is going to be a lot of fun. So the only things that I worried about were the lighting because I was involved with this house when it was built. And we talked about this, like nobody moved in for the longest time. And I'm very sure that there is non-compliant lighting on site. And so I would like the town to check that and that this property should be brought into compliance as we do this project. So other than the lighting on the house, that'll be good. The other lighting, the path lighting, I think to the ADU needs to be on some kind of a timer or on a switch. And the blue lights we saw the blue circles at the vegetable garden, those should be on a switch. So that, if you're going into the garden at night, you turn the lights on. Those should not be on all the time. And then just some sort of mechanism for the walkway lighting, just so neighbors aren't looking up into a semicircle of airport lights, but other than that, I think that the screening of the solar panels was great. I think it's great to have a little bit of screening down near the house below, because when you're up there, you can see the cars that are parked in their driveway. But, it all made a lot of sense to me. The planting plan makes a lot of sense. So I'm totally in support of everything. I just want to make sure that the existing lighting is compliant and that the pathway lighting and the vegetable garden lighting are on some kind of a switch. And then, but let's revisit this after we hear your comments.
Thanks. I guess I have a question for you, if that's appropriate. And this can be a discussion, right? And as far as compliance with the town ordinance versus our design guidelines.
Well, what the ASCC told the people when they came through in the first design, I don't think that when that was finalized, I don't think that we saw what was approved by the ASCC. So there's more lighting than we would have approved on the house. So I just want them to check that.
Okay, the first design, so
When
this
the
came
house
through
was
on
built.
conceptual.
Built like
Okay.
what, 8 years ago or 10 years ago? I don't know. It was
May-
sitting
I think
empty
That's
longer
soon ago.
than that.
for years.
Empty for
That
years,
was
maybe
the-
more like 15 years ago. But yes, I think that there have been very little, I don't remember anybody living in that house. But anyway, and we talked about that at the site meeting. So, I mean, I think the current owners are just, they don't know. So I just want the town to check that. And if there are non-compliant lights, let's 86 them, but everything else looks great. I mean, even the pendant at the new door, with the new front door with the 2 side lights taken out. I think that's a great idea. And I think that'll look wonderful. So I'm in support of everything. I just want it to be checked.
So my question to you is whether this conflict between the town ordinances and the design guidelines in terms of the lighting levels is something that has come up in the past. And whether,
No, I don't think it has come up in the past because I think the ASCC treats every project, autonomously. We look at the lighting plan
Right, but when you say to meet the lighting levels that we ask for, are we asking for the lighting levels that are requested in the design guidelines, or are we asking for the
I think
lighting levels in-
the lighting levels are a fairly new thing in the last 5 or so years. So usually when I'm looking at projects, I'm not looking at lumens. I'm looking at fixtures. I'm looking whether the fixtures downlighting, whether it's covered, that's the kind of thing that, I'm more interested in. Neighbors having to look up into a fixture, stuff like that. That's the thing that gets my attention.
So something that gets my attention relates to the overall, the functionality of the dark sky as a goal. And the extent to which LEDs are making it into the system and allowing people to achieve lighting levels that you just would never have had before with the same circuits and everything. And the downlighting requirements, I think, are well intentioned, but if you have 10 times as much light coming out of a downlight, the amount that's going to reflect off of your surfaces and back into the sky is going to be more than if you had an uplight
I know.
with
The
previous
LED is
fixture.
changing everything.
But the LEDs still have lumens associated with them.
Right. And so if we can maintain a set of lumen requirements that are well specified, I think we go a long way towards protecting that dark sky goal. And we have a surprisingly well considered, in terms of how it's described for the amount of lumens per linear foot along a walkway and so forth in the design guidelines, that I think is a
Lost.
more complete set of guidelines than exist in the town ordinance, and more effective if we want the dark sky character to maintain.
Well, I hope the planning department is checking that,
Right.
checking the lumens.
Because
Well,
I
so
think,
that's I guess that's the
question,
issue
right.
here is
Yeah.
that we have a town ordinance that has this 1,000 something per
For
fixture
fixture.
where, and it doesn't specify how many fixtures you should have, or you can have.
except
I
at the
don't know.
front door in the garage,
Who's checking that either? I mean, I don't
every door is supposed to only have no more than one.
know more than one.
Though we have allowed in some cases two at the entry. But again, as you say, the existing house has a lot of lights, but that's not quite what your
Right.
question is about. Your
And-
question seems to be more about landscaping, lighting.
Well, actually, the entrance light lumens is over our design guideline for a single overhead
I
fixture.
didn't look at it.
Um,
The one pendant fixture.
yeah,
300.
the ones they're replacing are also over, but they're getting rid of them.
They're getting
which is
rid of those.
appreciated. Yeah.
Right.
Um,
So I don't know what the grand total is there, but
But I think
But let's-
legally, we have to deal with the code more than the design guidelines. They should be the same, but I think correct me if I'm wrong,
Not even
Jamie, but I
close.
think, and Adrian, that legally, we have to go by the code, what's written into the building code as opposed to the design
Correct.
guidelines, which are
Yes.
advisory.
That is correct. And the lighting requirements for ASCC approval, which is listed in the lighting ordinances, that the following light fixtures, placements, or types are generally discouraged and require ASCC approval in order to be installed. And that is lighting for landscaping, trees or structures, including entryways, features, pillars, and posts. And so then for those types of lighting, then the ASCC typically would refer them to, the design guidelines for purposes of, safety and travel.
But the municipal code says that you can have 1100 lumens.
In 25 lumens, yes. Perfect.
I mean, always we've been less is more, the darker the better. I mean, that's what the town is about. So,
Yes,
let's try to get it as dark as possible. So,
and yes,
if-
so that's why we're asking for the ASCC.
So Kenny, if you
to-
add up these ones along the path, is it more than the square footage of the design guidelines? Because
Um,
they're 125s, so I don't know the rule for the design guidelines.
Yeah, I think there are places where, let me go back to so the design guideline was, for stair step lighting, 50 lumens per 4-foot width of step. For low height lighting, it was 40 lumens per linear foot of walkway, or deck patio perimeter. And for overhead lighting, it was 25 per linear foot of walkway.
Overhead lighting, 25 lumens per linear foot. What does that mean?
That means along the walkway, you're allowed to have, so a maximum lumen output for a single fixture was 350. And then, for multiple fixtures, it's 25 per linear foot of walkway. So if you, what is that? If you had a 350 lumen single fixture, you couldn't have them spaced any more tightly than, like 14.
5 feet, right? These are 125, so you're saying they can only be placed every 5 feet.
Right.
So I think this is more than 5 feet. This is
Yeah,
32
so
feet.
that's fine. I think the only one that potentially breaks the design guidelines is the one over the entry. But what I'm hearing is that the town ordinance would supersede the design guidelines for an entry, even though our design guideline says
At
entries
30 feet
upwards
apart,
of
they're
50.
kind of vector lights. You're walking from
Mhm.
light to light.
So you don't trip.
Yes.
So that's not an
But
issue.
it's
So you're
not really
concerned about
lighting the
this one.
space. It's directing you in this direction.
Okay. So the one issue you're having is that this is 400 instead of, you're saying it
It's
should
by a
be what?
little, but I was looking to sort of clarify in general because it was something I noticed with another review that I did offline. Was something that came back.
So for the architecture team, can we step down from that lighting? Can we do a reduction there? Gina, are you?
Yes, I'm here. And I think our goal is to be in compliance. And so if the request is to try to get that down to 350, we can explore other options and trying to pull that into conformance. I have found, for dark sky lighting, often 400 lumens is kind of a standard. But yes, happy to look into that and see if we can find something else.
So, yeah, I would say that if, Jamie, when you go back and explore this and talk about it, whoever with John, the planning director, and you determine that that it has to be less than 400, then we should tell the applicant to do that. But if the rule says that you're allowed at this current point, because there's this contradiction between design guidelines and things that you're allowed to have more than 350, then I think we let it go.
But I want to move this project forward tonight.
Right. Yeah.
Me
So
too.
Okay. And it appears
if
so that-
maybe one of you can take a look at it after the fact.
Right. Yeah.
One of you two, because I'm fine.
Okay.
Can I ask, sorry, just a really quick question with the lighting? Is it possible if we have a fixture that's kind of a standard 400, but we're able to dim that down to get that at the 350 lumen lighting level? Is that a viable option, or do you want us to specifically be selecting something that has kind of a maximum threshold of 400? Because sometimes we can even swap out a bulb type or something like that to get the lumens down.
Well, we approved that for the Kane house.
So swapping out a bulb type, I think is okay. Dimming, I think is not, as far as what we've considered in the past.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you reach a state where it's like this can be shown to not be selectable to be brighter, that's fine.
Okay. And Kenny, do you have other comments related to the project in general?
Outside of that, in general, I like the project very much. I appreciate very much the sensitivity to the types of surfaces and the allowances for wildlife.
Okay. So my comments, I agree with my other two commissioners. I think the project's well thought out. I like the fact that a lot of native plants have been put in place. The lighting, in my mind, is pretty minimal and for safety. I think there's been a good attention to making sure that the beautiful oak trees are safeguarded in the project. My concerns are minor, but I do notice that there's still 3 Pride of Madeira plants on the plans that I think should be removed. That was part of conservation's concerns. I think they still snuck in there. So we should take those out. My other concern is related to the driveway turnout. This is a pretty challenging site, both from a construction standpoint and just in general, with a pretty steep driveway. I realize that because of the site visit, I actually had to back down it, and I would not recommend people doing that. So part of the plan requires you to remove your additional parking space at your garage and turn it into green, into vegetation, which is fine, but I still have concerns about whether or not you're going to be able to turn easily coming out of your driveway to then go down your driveway front forward. In addition, the 2 extra parking spaces that are planned for the ADU and for the house in general that's required to have extra parking spaces are parked right where you would be backing out of your driveway. So there's no real, I don't see personally there's space for you to be able to back out of your garage, turn, and then come down the driveway straight. So I think you really need to think that through carefully. I would actually recommend you put a physical barrier there tomorrow and practice to see whether or not you can actually back out of your garage and turn around. And even try and put, if you have a visitor staying at your ADU and they're parked in your driveway, which they're supposed to be, can you still maneuver around that car or those 2 cars to get out of your garage? So that would be my only concern just about the plan in general. Because I think you're essentially taking out your extra parking space and your kind of turnaround space. So, and I realize that you're kind of at a limit. Well, you still have space in terms of impermeable coverage. I note in the calculations that you've included, it would appear that you've included square footage for the driveway that's not actually on the property. And I don't know if that's standard. That seems strange to me. So there's a lot of square footage off of the property, outside the property limit that seems to be included. So I don't think there's really an issue with impervious coverage. So anyway, that's something to think about. Other than that, the other thing I noticed is it's not really, it's not a complaint per se or anything. It's just there are at least 21 trees that are planned to be 36-inch box or 48-inch box. So I just want the applicant to be completely aware that those are enormous trees. They will require cranes and forklifts to install. They require digging pretty monstrous holes. A lot of men and hardworking women, if you will, be digging out those holes with backhoes and whatever. So it's, and your site is very challenging to get up to where those holes will be dug and where you're going to have to take the equipment to take those big trees in there. So you probably should think that through if that's a commitment that you're willing to make. If you want instant landscaping, that's fine. But I have found personally with dealing with Portola Valley soils, they tend to be rather unpredictable and difficult. And I have found that the bigger the tree is, the greater the chance that it might actually not make it. So just something for you to think about. It doesn't affect the ASCC review. But those were my comments. So other than that.
Well, let me jump on that one. And oftentimes smaller trees grow faster. So if you start with a 15, you don't need a a 24 is fairly easy to plant, but a 36, you're getting into needing help, moving it around the property. And I think the less you have to drive around this property, because every time you disturb the soil, you invite invasives in. So, the least amount of disruption to the land itself would be really good. So you might look at 15 gallons. And my other thought about this parking space and impervious surface, maybe you could do a meadow, on, the plastic cones. You could do a parkable meadow right there, and that wouldn't affect your impervious surface, but, right in there. But you might look at that. Also, one thing I didn't talk about was construction staging. I know that goes to the planning department, but this is going to be a very important project with construction staging because you cannot park on the street. So where are the people, where are your workers going to be? And how's that going to happen, and how are you going to manage that?
There is
So-
a page.
Oh, they got a page? Oh,
They've
good.
included a
I
page
didn't
in
see it.
here that shows
Good.
them actually, well, this was also something not really related to the
Sorry, I didn't see
decision on the
that.
ASCC, but the construction staging does involve taking up pretty much the driveway and the garage. So for, the office and what have you. So it just will be important for the applicant to understand where they personally will be parking, where their workers will be parking to minimize disruption to the neighborhood, because there's no way to park on Golden Oak.
And trucks backing down the driveway.
And
Yeah.
backing down the
That was
driveway.
like that one on Westridge that was just so difficult. Dolan. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are my comments. Otherwise, I feel that the plan is really nice, and I think we can probably move forward
I
to
think we should try to move this forward.
make approval with some conditions. I'm actually fine with the lighting as is.
I think this discussion around the difference in the ordinance and the design guidelines. I feel that this project is close enough that I'm okay to actually approve as is, but I wanted to make the point that in the public meeting and to make the request of the planning department, that applicants
Contradiction,
going
mhm.
forward, that we are going to be asking for conformance to the design guidelines on the lighting. It should make things easier, because I think we've had a lot of discussions in the past few years that had forgotten how clear those design guidelines are on how many lumens, how often, and they are quite clear in our design guidelines for the outdoor lighting. And so if we can just have applicants follow that going forward, I think it'll be easier.
I'd love to put it on the agenda where someone from the planning department comes and talks to us about it and informs us so that we know what we're talking about,
Yeah.
and so that we can help make better decisions around lighting. So I think that would be great to have an educational session with ASCC, before a meeting starts soon.
Mhm.
So in light of that, then I would propose that let's move forward, that we move to approve.
Mhm.
Do you guys want to see the lighting plan come back to one of you? Or are you okay?
I'm okay with it as is. It's so close to our design guidelines.
I'm fine
as
with it, yes.
So then I move to approve as submitted, but I would like to see.
We can't hear you, Dana.
Oh, you're off.
Shit, sorry. So I would move to approve. I would like to see, though, an answer to the lighting at the vegetable garden and the lighting for the stairs. How are those going to be managed? And I think that can happen at the planning level. I don't think ASCC needs to be involved with that. So, but I would like that to be addressed. And so that is the motion.
I also want those 3 Pride of Madeiras removed.
Oh, and the Pride of Madeira should be removed. They're invasive. You're actually not allowed to plant them in PV, so they need to come out.
Most definitely. We had talked about that on site, most definitely.
Yeah, we did.
Those will be removed.
So that's the motion.
So you're proposing
You
to
need-
add additional.
pardon?
You're proposing to add an additional condition of approval, right?
Yeah.
Two separate ones regarding removal
You
of.
guys, would anyone second the changed motion?
before we get to that, I wanted to, how do we handle the idea of the driveway issue being possibly inadequate? And that it may need to be changed. How, can that be just handled at the level of one of us?
Well, Gina, what do you
review
think
it?
about that? I mean, do you think that you need additional parking? Given the
Uh,
ADU?
Yeah, I think we can look at it and see, and I'll defer to you as well. I mean, I know that the landscape team did study that.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Anne, do you want to?
Yeah,
chime in on that?
we can definitely take a look at that if you would like us to. We have looked carefully at this. If we do add anything like the meadow idea that you had mentioned, Anna, that does actually count to about 50% for impervious surface. So there is a level of balancing our impervious surfaces. But we have talked this through with the client, but we most certainly can take another look and just make sure that they're aware of all your concerns. And I think they're all very valid points.
Is it okay if I provide a bit of input?
Yes.
The code does require the 2 9x18 guest parking spaces. And so in looking, more in detail now at that, by eliminating all of that, it does make it very difficult to, back out of your garage into a car. So it could be, an area that, an additional area that can accommodate 2 9x18 uncovered spaces. That may need to be,
Right.
part of the
Can
condition.
they be placed further down the driveway?
We can take a look at this. We have some issues with, obviously, you remember the slope and then
Mhm.
existing trees. So the area up there is quite small, and we were trying to create a softer entrance to their front door, as you remember us discussing.
Mhm.
But we can try to take a look at that and see if there's a way to fit another parking spot in that area, if that's what you would like us to do. It's a very challenging space. So and the clients had mentioned that they were okay with the backing out, but we can definitely revisit that if you would like us to.
Well, it's an issue, not so much of backing out, but backing out with 2 cars sitting there. So
Mhm.
that you got to have both of those requirements met. So definitely something to look at carefully.
Some people have a pretty high tolerance for.
So
for
maybe
that.
this needs to come back to, to one of us
Right.
about the driveway.
Well, I think the question is the situation one that's creating some kind of hazard or concern at the street?
If you have
If
to
we don't
back out the
think-
driveway, it would be
But if the
hazard to the street. You're
But
not
if the
going
clients
face
are able to
forward.
turn the car around to their satisfaction to come down the driveway face forward, then there is no safety issue.
Yes, but assuming that you have 2 cars parked in the extra spaces that are required somewhere.
Right.
So yes, as long as they can turn the car around with 2 cars in the driveway,
Parked there. Yep.
parked there, yes, then it's not an issue.
Yeah, I think probably suffices to put it in as a recommendation to make sure that
To
the
confirm.
clients understand the concerns that are being raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, do you want to condition 2 new places to park? Is that what you guys are saying?
I don't think that's necessary.
Okay, how do you want to handle the motion?
A condition to remove the Pride of Madera and a recommendation to make sure that there's full understanding of the situation with the driveway.
Full understanding of the situation with the driveway. Do you want that to be handled at the planning level, or do you want an ASCC member to look at that with the planning department? It's just a consult.
Yeah, I think what do you think, Rebecca?
Well, it
One of-
comes down to if they do require the space, the extra space, so that's going to have a change to the landscape plans, then I think an ASCC member should
I do too.
review it again.
And I think you should do it because I think that you're interested in the driveway and in the parking.
Okay, okay.
And so then what? Someone saying something? So the
Could I ask
motion,
one question? Sorry, could I ask one question? If based on what you guys are going to propose, if the clients are okay with the way that it's set up and they are comfortable with being able to get in and out of this driveway with 2 cars, do we still need to come back to the ASCC to say?
you're not coming back to
client-
the ASCC at all. You would be going to talking to the planning department with any different ideas you had, and then Rebecca would take a look at what your idea is.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would,
But you're
I
not
would-
coming back here.
to you. Okay, we'd
No.
just be going back to Jamie and then Jamie would run it
That's right.
past.
I'm
Correct.
trying to get you moving
Okay.
along.
Oh, we greatly appreciate it. Greatly appreciate it. Just wanted to understand the process.
Okay. So
So-
let's go back to a motion.
okay.
So I move to approve the project as submitted with except for removing the
Pride of
Pride of
Madeira,
Madeira and
adding the managed lighting
adding the managed lighting and
and,
possibly looking at the parking situation. And that would be looked at by Rebecca with the planning department. And so
And-
is there a second on that motion?
A second.
Just one vote. Okay,
What?
I had one question about the public input about the stormwater implementation a year after the final building permit approval.
Right.
If that is something that we need to include in the conditions of approval or will be considered.
I think it's a condition of the Public Works Department already.
That they will, yeah, that will be looking at the stormwater.
Right, I think they have
Stormwater
to
plan.
provide through the Public Works, when they provide, but when they submit for the building permit, they have to provide evidence of
grading and
how the
drainage.
water is being drained and the water is supposed to stay on the site.
We talked about that a little bit during the site meeting because we noticed that there had been kind of down by the solar panels, that water had gone through that. But we talked that that was probably relating to the construction around the solar panels. But I don't know. But I think, yes, I think that Public Works would be looking at this. Howard would look at this.
It
For
looked to me
sure.
like the civil engineering work, design work that had been done considered everything together, including the exemption ADU.
Mhm.
So I
And just to add, the engineering and geology does look at the proposal again at the time of building permit submittal. So which can be submitted 15 days after once the appeal period has expired.
Right.
Okay, so we
yes.
have a motion and a second. So take it from
Take a
there.
vote. Okay. I think we'll just do all in
I
favor.
can't.
May I do an all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Yeah. Okay, so motion carries. Thank you very much to the applicant. team
Thank
for
you,
being
you
here.
guys.
Thank you, ASCC.
Good luck with your project.
good luck.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Greatly appreciate all your input.
All right, I'm just gonna go give a wave to Carter. See if
Oh,
he
yeah,
wants to
somebody's
hop
gotta
back
get
in
Carter.
here. Yeah, we can move on to. Okay, thank you, Kenny.
Oh, and I forgot to mention that recommendation that they should probably start the planting around the solar panels now, right? As opposed to after
Well, we
the,
talked about that in other areas of the project now. You know, whatever you can do early is good.
yeah, because this
yeah.
won't be affected by the
That would be great.
construction and it would definitely help the neighborhood, yeah.
All right, Carter, it took so long.
And Carter would have known the rules for the.
Yeah, it is cold in here. Okay, where are we?
So we're on to commission reports.
You're now the chair again?
I am. So in commission reports, I don't have anything to report. Do you guys have anything?
I do. I've been working on, is it Pinion? That the long, long driveway on Pinion. There's a very large property and they had done some work, they had done some trail work up on the property. And we had them remove the furniture up at the top. We looked at that again. Nona, on the Conservation Committee has been very active. And we just had a meeting there a week ago and they're getting ready. So their planting is going to start and we approved it. So we approved them moving forward. And it's a complicated project mostly because of invasive management of detrichia and other stuff like that. But this team really is on top of it and knows what they're doing. It's pretty exciting. In fact, we'll probably learn a lot from them.
They still have to submit, right, to the ACC. They haven't officially come before the ACC, right? They just had a planning, sort of.
I
That's approval?
think
Oh.
that we were an ad hoc and I think that we approved them. So I don't know that they're coming back to us.
I don't think they've ever come before us formally. I think they just came with it was an advisory meeting.
Well,
that they-
maybe.
If,
I don't know, but that's what I did as a subcommittee.
okay.
I'm not familiar. I'm gonna have to look into it. It was before my
Oh,
time.
Jamie,
30
Jim.
opinions, I don't know.
There's the one with they made their own trails, right?
Yeah, they made their own
Without permission,
trails.
right.
Big,
So-
big property.
Yeah, that was just an advisory meeting that they were wanting to get approval, kind of pre-approval about their pool and their pergola or whatever.
So
gazebo,
maybe they're
and-
coming, but
So they would have to, if they're planning to do major changes,
Yeah.
they would need to come officially to us.
well, they need to get started or they won't start this year. So they need to get moving.
For the planting, presumably they could do some of that themselves.
Yep.
The invasive management, they would be allowed to do without a.
Right.
There wouldn't be any threshold there unless they're, exceeding, 100 cubic yards of earth movement and 5,000, square feet
They would be,
of changes.
they would be.
I thought it was in motion before I came back on the commission. So I'm just making an assumption that they've been here. So, well, we'll see what
I don't-
happens,
I
but
don't- Unless I was out for a couple meetings, so maybe they came back then. But I don't think so.
I know the project you're talking about now. Because they had
Jake
a s-
Garcia is the
yep,
planner.
That's right. They
Yep.
had to stop work and then they came in to review the, yeah, so they should be returning. I'll follow up with Jake and see the
Okay.
status.
Good.
I had reviewed the Kane project on Hillbrook. I was okay with I okayed the fencing, but I had an issue with some of the plants along Alpine Road and then you
That
took it
one,
over.
yeah.
So, but do you know where that is now? Did you give them the new plants to?
They've been working with the planning department and I think they're done. But,
Okay. Yeah, I just needed to have the prunus.
And then I got
so the-
involved with the one across the street with their fencing. On the corner of Hillbrook and Alpine. And that, I think that's in motion also.
Did that come before
Some people
us?
thought that I don't, why I was involved as an ASCC person because I don't know why.
Okay. All right, well, as long as it's taken care of, I guess.
Yeah, it's done.
Did
That's
that
it.
property receive a stop work notice?
All right.
Did that property, receive a stop work notice? 'Cause, it seemed
They,
like.
they put the fencing in without coming to the town. And that's, I think, what happened. And so,
That was
then
the
they-
new property that
Yes.
just got sold.
that's right.
Okay.
Any other committee reports?
I did a building permit review for 350 Grove, and that was the one that had a lot of feature lighting. And they did remove, including lighting at a gate. And so they did everything that we asked for. But that was what prompted me to look into this issue of how precisely described the lighting design guidelines are. With appreciation for their effort to be responsive to what we had asked for, even though we weren't as precise as we could have been. I think I okayed it. There's still possibly a little bit of open discussion about that with the planner involved as to whether or not I've officially okayed it. But they were responsive by the letter to what we had asked. There was just still some ambiguity.
We had a lot of discussion tonight around lighting by code and
Guidelines.
and
Versus design
guidelines.
guidelines.
What's the difference?
There's a contradiction essentially between the two.
Well, the building code requires, some more lighting. And then there are, strategies around, how to deal with lighting beyond the building, which really is, beyond the building code. And then, how to deal with stairs on an open hill. And, that would have been some of my concern, on the long path, to the ADU. Which actually brings me to a point that I hope, Adrian, with your help, we could actually see projects before they're fully baked. So that we could help with, particularly with ADUs, with the location of them. Because the path, the path on the previous project is one of the things that I would be most concerned about.
From a lighting standpoint, you're saying?
Well, it precipitates a path
Yeah.
that can end up looking like, a long set of lights, that is far beyond, where, the path of travel might be. And if the ADU, could have been located differently, then you would obviate the need for, the long path lights. So, it presents a problem from a design standpoint, and a review standpoint, that if ADUs are exempt, the ADU might be exempt, but is the siting. Because, what that project was reviewing was siting and the precipitation of grading associated with at least some of that. Because, if you'd have split the grading, on the patio, terrace work behind that, from the vegetable garden, which is an awful lot of structure for the vegetables. In how that cascaded, down the hill, to the ADU, if we'd have had the ability, to opine, about the siting, when it was still scribbles and sketches, and we could have potentially, moved that ADU around, I think a lot of the concerns, wouldn't have been.
I hope we make progress on that this year with the council and with the town manager, that we see projects early.
Well, I think, so, what I hope to put, on, a soon agenda, for us, to review, is potentially, a ordinance change, that clarifies how and when the ASCC has input. And if the ASCC could have input at the conceptual design stage, so that it's before, having or reestablishes, a completeness list for application, that doesn't include, hundreds, tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, in consultant fees. But it is about, kind of moving stuff around, so that the ASCC could participate, in, whether a project makes sense or not. and utilizes us, as a town resource, to help people reduce the impacts of the projects. Because some of the ADU projects that I've seen, from the other side, are potentially pretty impactful, that are, kind of moving under the radar. And, because, things like lighting and landscaping and paths and, how you utilize it, are things that I hope, as a town, we get our arms around and can help people make good decisions.
Well,
I-
go ahead.
I wonder if the right way, because I'm sensitive to the fact that, that adding a cycle with the ASCC, is adding to the planning department's, sort of responsibilities. And it adds costs for the applicant as well,
What I'm
because,
suggesting is that, there's very little staff involvement, at the conceptual design level.
what I was thinking was that maybe there's a facility for applicants to just directly come to us for that kind of thing. Where we make ourselves available for that, entirely separately from.
I think that's part of what, we need to agendize, because we're not really allowed to have this much discussion, about this, without it being, on an agenda. So what I'm going to suggest is that I write, as chair, kind of the outline of what I'm thinking about. And, put that, on an agenda, because I do think that, the last thing I want to do is make planning's job harder. What I'm hoping is to make planning's job easier, but give the ASCC an opportunity for more influence. And some of it is a reversion, back to my experience, during the 90s, when there was very little concern about, the number of times, the ASCC met and, the number of reviews and the application requirements were considerably less in the 90s. Where an awful lot of single-family residential projects could be pursued, without the need or the requirement, for formal civil engineering and, a lot of the other stuff that, has crept in, including, water management and, green building checklists and a lot of those good ideas, have actually taken away the ASCC's ability, to have an influence, where, in the 90s, we were able to say, why don't you think about moving the building? And where moving the building, could have an incredibly improved effect, on the environment, the relationship between neighbors, and actually the on-site, impacts. So, because that's where I think our role was originally intended, under the inclusion of site, architecture and site control. It wasn't about enforcing the rules. It was about enforcing or encouraging good decision-making,
Yes.
around the scope of project, that the applicant's looking for. So that, instead of, taking the easy route, there might be a harder route that, that does a better job. Because the path across the bottom of that property, is weird. And I would like to ask the question about how the solar panels ever got approved. Because I
It
don't
was
know.
all over that. I mean,
I don't think we have a say.
we
for
don't
solar.
have a say. It was out of our hands.
Was there a
I mean, I
building-
called that
was-
day.
Was there a building? Was there a building permit, approved for that?
I think so.
Must have been, because it involved electrical.
I can't put there's a bunch of other things you can't put in.
Do we have is there a council liaison or planning commission liaison in our meeting tonight?
No, they didn't actually reappoint liaisons this year.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
anyway, but.
I look forward to
but
that.
That's what I'm recommending as a process.
Are you anticipating having the whole commission kind of meet
I-
early on, sort of brainstorm with the clients?
Well, not so much brainstorming, but, having a reaction, and then having site meetings, to review things. Because that was the other thing, that in the nineties and 2000s, we did a lot of, and they were very effective. It reduced the amount of hyperbole between neighbors and, helped ASCC members, through a agendized on-site meeting, actually get to a lot of the really important stuff. Because if all we're dealing with, are the number of light fixtures and the plant species, I don't think that that's accomplishing, what the ASCC role was intended for. I really think it was was more about making good decisions about sites and having positive influence.
And
on the
applicants were residents be happy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
they thanked us at the end. I mean, it was
did.
hard work, but
And
they
did-
had better
But
projects.
they didn't have to go through months and months and months
Yeah.
of filling out forms and, getting engineers to respond.
Right.
Dotting their i's and crossing their t's. It was more about the content of the design. So it embodied fewer engineers and more design.
I hope we get back there.
Well, I'd look forward to
So that's
seeing
what
the
anyway,
proposal.
I'm
Yeah.
expecting to want to put that on, an early agenda this year.
Good.
Because I do think that it would make the relationship between, applicants and the ACC much less fearful, and much more positive in the way that we would be, the ASCC would be perceived.
And tonight I asked for an educational consult about lighting, about the difference between the design guidelines and the code, just so that we understand.
And I feel that we need it also for fire defensible space, because the regulations seem to be changing on a daily basis. So it would be really helpful to,
Being on the other side, trying to deal with it.
they conflict, I was just reading the one that they're considering this month, and it's just,
Well, and there's actually some changes they've made that, materially make large parts of the town unprotected from fire. Because they increase the required flow of hydrants without ever consulting the water provider about the flow that they can produce. Oh, boy. Or what they do produce. That's right.
oh, I guess back on the topic of your commissioner memo, would you anticipate also in having a meeting about it, inviting other local architects who have had projects to get their feedback on what would make the most sense?
I don't disagree.
And applicants, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the point of view that I'm hoping to bring, is more a reversion to a kinder, friendlier, but more productive, early response, early interaction. And I do think that, having other architects, other design professionals, I also think that, the town attorney is going to have, need to have some level of, concentration in this as well, because, there have been an awful lot of legislation, over, the last 6-10 years, that, has obviated the ability to have subjective review.
Mhm.
Might also be great to have Tom come and talk about how effective it was.
Yeah.
Our former planner. You
Well,
know,
he did an awful lot. But anyway, that's what I'm hoping for, early this spring. I'd love to, get your thoughts about it, if you want to, you can't have a serial meeting, but that's my intention is to have, is to agendize, a few meetings going forward, about, suggested processes, to make the ASCC more efficient, more effective, and particularly, if we've got many agendas without items, project items to be discussed, I think
We should use the time.
we would be benefited, and we can do it without increasing the load on the planning staff, if we do it ourselves.
Yeah. I mean,
Not just increase the cost of the yeah, but you mentioned the safety issue with the water. I think we have a responsibility to start to raise that up. That sounds like a serious issue.
I've raised the issue, with the fire marshal. I've raised it, with, some of the planning staff.
Cal Water.
Well, and I've raised it with Cal Water. And Cal Water says, you want it, you get to pay for it.
Who pays for it?
The applicant, whoever needs the water.
So the applicant would be required to put a new fire hydrant outside their home or something?
Yes, that's what the workaround is, but in order to do that, you can't use Cal Water's water to feed the hydrant. You have to use water that's already been distributed to the property. So you need to store it on the property, but it's a.
Oh, boy.
It's another discussion for another day. But, the creeping rules, coming down, mostly from the state, are really problematic, for us, for the planning staff, and for applicants, because, it just, it increases the cost of housing, and, while we're trying to do affordable housing, it's
Process is not affordable. Even just the process.
The process is unaffordable. It's 50 grand just for permits to build a new house in Portola Valley. You're not going to find an affordable home that starts with 50,000 before you've even hired an architect or hit a nail.
That's just the permitting fees, doesn't include
Engineer.
professional services fees that are required.
Yeah, that's another 50 plus.
well, good, anyway.
Great.
Thank you.
let's do it.
Staff report.
Anything else, on committees and reports? I'd move,
We have to do the
Minutes.
minutes.
Oh,
And
yeah,
you don't have staff report?
No staff reports for me, so we can move on to the minutes and we'll have to open public comment.
I'll open the public comment for, the review of the minutes. Anyone, in the public want to speak about the content of the meaning of the minutes?
It looks like we have two hands. I see Rita.
Hi, my comment, thanks for taking my comment. My comment is on the discussion you just had of the committee or different things that this particular group is been doing lately. And it's really exciting to hear that. I remember it was probably less than 2 years ago when Laura Russell was saying that this group was done. I think Kenny was at that meeting, and this group is done, and you're not going to have many meetings in the future, and you're kind of redundant. Which, of course, this town needs this group and needs this group to be lively and active and not just canceling nonstop meetings when we're looking at all of this construction that's happening in town. And, we can't even start a discussion about what's in the general plan when everything is being changed on the fly. So I'm very happy to hear this discussion. And I just hope that this momentum, it's February now, it just doesn't end with a discussion that some people remember tonight, but actually is putting together a plan to move forward with all of this new housing, no matter how anyone says, oh, it doesn't matter what anyone puts up. if there's a McDonald's at the end of the street, that's going to be really bad for our town, and shame on all of you. So please don't give up the ghost on our town and our general plan. Please move things forward. You know, if you haven't read the general plan recently, please read it again, and let's get some things going in our town. Thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you, Rita, for your comments. Next person.
Next we have Christy C. This is for public comment on the minutes.
Well, actually, I don't think there was public comments on the commentary that just happened. I did want to share with you regarding the water hydrant. When I went up to knock on the door, since I was not involved with that, I noticed that the fire hydrant in front of their house is leaking. So I reported that. There's definitely, it looked like a backhoe was right next to it. So there's something going on with water and fire hydrants. And Carter, I really appreciate it if we could understand what you mean by increasing the flow of the hydrants. That is the hydrant closest to our house. And I am concerned with that flow. I did call around to regarding 300 feet and 500 feet. And we have Woodside as 300 feet, but they have 500 feet for WCF, Wireless Communication Facility. Los Altos Hills has 500 feet. I've had it that way for 20 years. Los Altos 300 feet, Hillsborough 500 feet. So, you know, it's all over the board. And if it's going to include more people to be notified and be involved, and if you're going to walk sites, I could have been up there doing my comments, not at this meeting, but at the site meeting, and then I'd be done. So please invite us to the walkthroughs when you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Anybody else?
Last hand is Caroline.
Great, thank you. Again, it's not about the minutes. It's I'm just repeating what Rita said, what Christy said. We want to be involved because we have experience. We've been here for a long time. I have a question about the municipal code. So as a member of PPTS, before Laura left, she suddenly invited PPTS to have an input on driveways. So is this current project, is it subjective to municipal code 1720? And that should be another conditional input before you approve this project. Exactly the same what Carter said. We have so many other issues because all the affordable housing is alongside our scenic corridors. It's Alpine and it's Portola Valley and it's Portola Road, and it's at the ground level. So they will not have any issues with water pressure, with water, or with any communication, but all the people above it have been suffering for all these years. I can give you a great example, Palmer Lane. Everything, all the utilities are underground and we suffer a lot. So I have a formal complaint with the water company because unfortunately the town did not want to help us, but there's several issues. There was an earthquake fault there right by the lower fire hydrant, and we have been told by the fire department several years ago they will not go up to the second one. There's several issues.
Carolyn,
we have.
If this really isn't about that tonight. We need to finish with.
But Carter, you have to understand this is issues that we have presented to the previous town council, and they have just ignored us.
Well, this is
So
not the
there's
town council.
We're not the council. We're
No,
chairs.
but there's several people who are who have been limited in their projects and who are still waiting to be approved by the town council or by the planning department. And I will relay to them what happened today because it's refreshing. But it's
Thank you.
unfair that people are put on hold.
I
for
get
no
it.
reason.
I get it, and I appreciate your comment, but, you know, we
Thank
need to
you.
we need to keep moving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion, I'm gonna close the public hearing, you know, on this item. Yeah, anyone have, you know, comments about, you know, the minutes at this point?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Got it. Thank you.
Therefore,
Motion to, adjourn the meeting.
All right. Thank you very much.